Good morning, everybody. My name is Andres Morales, and I'm your local Nahrep Orange County president for 2021. Today, we're bringing you a special event with Freddie Mac for the real estate market trends. And before we get started, I wanted to do a quick introduction about Nahrep. Nosotros somos the National Association of Hispanic Real Estate Professionals. We are the voice of the Hispanic real estate and proud champions of home ownership in the Hispanic community. Homeownership is a symbol of the American dream, the cornerstone of wealth creation, and a stabilizing force for working families. Our role as trusted advisors and passionate advocates is to help more Hispanic families achieve the American dream in sustainable ways that empowers them from generations to come. Our mission here at Nahrep, we are a purpose-driven organization that is propelled by a passionate combination of entrepreneurial spirit, cultural heritage, and an advocacy of its members. Our mission is to advance sustainable Hispanic homeownership. Nahrep accomplishes this mission by educating and empowering the real estate professional who serves the home buyer and home seller, advocating for public policy that supports the trade association's missions, and facilitating relationships among industry stakeholders, real estate practitioners, and other housing industry professionals. So now we're moving on with our national sponsors. Dominique?
Thank you, Andreas. I appreciate it. I just want to take a minute to introduce myself. My name is Dominique Nacarado, and I sit on this board as the Government Affairs Director. I am very pleased to be able to participate with such a wonderful chapter. In addition to my role on this board, I'm also the Community and Affordable Relationship Lending Manager for Chase Home Lending. I'm going to take just a minute today to talk about Chase and the services that we have to meet the homeownership needs for low to moderate income borrowers. Chase has expanded our suite of products and program offerings so that we can promote sustainable home ownership by offering a variety of programs. If you want to move forward on the deck, Andreas. Thank you. So just a couple of those programs that I want to talk about today if you're unfamiliar with Chase. We do have low down payment options available as low as 3% with no income limitations. We also have loan to value ratios up to 97% and CLTVs up to 105%. For those of you that are unaware, we do have our Chase Homebuyer Grant. That grant amount is offered either $2,500 or $5,000, and that is dependent upon the subject property address. So there's no income restrictions there. You do not have to be a first-time home buyer. That homebuyer grant is available as long as you purchase a property in an eligible tract. We also have a $500 homebuyer education grant. So if your clients take homebuyer education, they would be eligible to receive that $500. For those of you that are unaware, we also have Chase Agent Express. So if you become a Chase agent, your client will be eligible to receive $1,000 post-closing, whether they buy or sell a property through that program. And then lastly, and one of the things that we're most proud about is our guarantee close. If we cannot close that loan in 21 days, then your customer is eligible for $2,500 cash back. So those are just a few of the programs that Chase offers. We are obviously committed to providing products and services that help meet the needs of low income customers. So thank you, Andreas. Thank you for the opportunity to give me a chance to talk for just a couple of minutes about the programs and services that we offer.
Hello, everyone. My name is Sergio Carroll with Citibank. I help drive homeownership opportunities to families of all income levels, but more specifically, low to moderate income households and underserved communities here in Orange County. It's been a very challenging year, to say the least, and our current market conditions have made it even more challenging and competitive for buyers to be able to become homeowners. Our guest speakers today, Ajita and Jason with Freddie Mac, will share with you insightful information on economic trends that will help you better understand our current market conditions to position you to help more families achieve homeownership. I'm excited to learn from our panelists today, and I hope to see you all very soon in person. Enjoy the event, everyone.
Excited to welcome Freddie Mac today to talk about the economic and market updates. And without further ado, I'll turn it over to Jason Jeffries with Freddie Mac.
Greetings, everybody. My name is Jason Jeffries, and thank you, Dominic and Andreas, for having us today. My colleague Ajita and I will be talking about Freddie Mac's role in the housing industry. But first, let me explain to you how Freddie Mac actually takes part in creating liquidity so we can foster sustainable home ownership. So number one, the homeowner. In this graph, we actually show how Freddie Mac is able to create liquidity in the industry. So let's give an example. A homeowner comes in, gets a Dreammaker or either a Chase mortgage. What will happen is Chase will take that mortgage and sell it to us, Freddie Mac, and we entail will actually give them cash for the actual mortgage note. We then will take that mortgage note and sell it to Wall Street and take it and transfer it into a security. That process is kind of what actually happens behind the scenes when it comes to the entire liquidity process. So imagine multiple times over that basically happens so that we can continue to offer liquidity to the industry and sustainable home ownership. Next slide. Very good. So as a real estate professional, you as a Nahrep member and a real estate professional are a trusted advisor. In short, your borrowers or your customers trust your opinion and take your recommendations. Our data actually shows that roughly about 76% of all first-time home buyers or home buyers in a whole will take the recommendation of their real estate professional when it comes to the lender. That's a really impactful number. Not to mention, your opinion and your knowledge about the products and resources that are out in the market are critical to the success and the sustainability of many homeowners in the market. So you want to understand and know about the products and the resources that are offered from lenders such as Chase. Next. Once again, I love this graphic here because it gives us kind of what is at the heart of a sustainable and a strong, affordable, and solid community. At this picture, you'll see a simple graphic. Many homes, beautiful sunshine, but one of the things at the root is the outreach, the lenders, the products, and the intermediaries. Each of these key stakeholders have a very vital part in the success of how well and how sustainable this community will continue to flourish. So Freddie Mac will support, undergird, and many times sponsor these parties so that we can have sustainable home ownership across America. So organizations such as Nahrep are a vital part of that process. That's why we hope that we will continue to be to this partnership with Andreas and his chapter so that we can continue to do more to help communities that you serve. So without further ado, I'd like to pass it on to Ajita so Ajita can tell you more about the different things that are happening in today's housing economy. Ajita?
Sure, thank you so much, Jason. Hello, everyone. My name is Ajita Athreya. I'm a senior economist in the Economic and Housing Research team at Freddie Mac. And today I'm delighted to be here with you all sharing the economy and the housing market update. Let's go to the next slide, please. Okay, before we dive into the details, let me just give you an overview of what I'm going to cover today. So on the economic front, what we're seeing is that the US economy, it has rebounded to its pre-pandemic level, which is a really good news. But at the same time, labor market is still struggling to add jobs despite we have rising number of job openings. And the talk of the town now is the consumer inflation. We are seeing there are many signs that the economy is coming back to life, but at the same time, consumer inflation is also coming back to life and it is surging. On the housing market front, housing market is strong. It is on low rates, but the demand we are seeing is softening a little bit, which I'll talk about. Housing supply is tight, and it seems like it's going to be a decade-long story that the supply is tight because the new home construction activity is also slow. And home prices are significantly up given that we have a very tight inventory and there is a tailwind from the millennials and the demand is very strong. So I'm going to cover all these topics today. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and get started. Next slide, please. Next slide. So this slide here is the that shows the US GDP growth. On your left is the GDP growth on an annualized basis, and on your right is the GDP in dollar volumes. So now we have 3 consecutive quarters with a positive economic growth. So after falling by 31%, GDP bounced back by 33% in Q3 of 2020. In Q4 of 2020, we had 4.3% economic growth. And in Q1 of 2021, we have 6.4% of economic growth. So now we have these 3 quarters with a positive economic growth. And if you look at the dollar volumes, before the pandemic hit, we were at around 19.01 trillion. Now we have bounced back to 19.08 trillion in total GDP, which means that we have surpassed the pre-pandemic level in the economic growth. Next slide, please. But a green part of the economy is the labor market. So labor market was the one that was hit the hardest during this pandemic, and it has not fully recovered yet. If you look at how many people we lost from the labor market in March and April of last year, it's around 22 million people. Since then, we've been adding jobs with an exception of December 2020, where we set around 306,000 jobs. In starting 2021, the job rebound started gaining the momentum again. In March, we added 785,000 jobs, which was above expectation. But April and May were not that good. In May, we added 559,000 jobs. And a lot of jobs out of 559 came from leisure and hospitality industry that was hit the hardest during this pandemic. So 292,000 jobs out of 559 were from leisure and hospitality industry. But still in the leisure and hospitality industry, we are 2.5 million short of where we were pre-pandemic. And overall, still 7.6 million people remain unemployed today. Next slide, please. And in terms of unemployment rate, the May unemployment rate is at 5.8%, but the labor market recovery, it is uneven across different race and ethnicities. We entered this pandemic at a very low unemployment rate at around 3.5%. The highest unemployment rate was around 15%. And if you look at the unemployment rate of Blacks today, it's still at 9.1%. And the highest that they have reached is around 20%. Hispanics unemployment rate, it's still at 7.3%. Compared to non-Hispanic whites, whose unemployment rate is now below the national average, which is at 5.1%. And that is reflected in share of the households that are behind on housing payment. If you look at the share of the households that are behind on housing payments by race and ethnicities, we can see that around 16 to 17% of Asians, Hispanics, and Black homeowners, they are behind on household payment. Renters, almost 30% of Black renters are behind on their housing payment, followed by Hispanics and followed by Asians. So minorities were the ones that were hit the hardest during this pandemic, and the recovery is also uneven. They are still struggling today compared to non-Hispanic whites. Next slide, please. And this is the unemployment rate by states. So across state, also the recovery is very different. If you look at all these states in darker color, like California, Nevada, New Mexico, New York, they still have unemployment rate higher than 8%. California is at 8.3%. If you look at Orange County, the unemployment rate is still at 6%, which is higher than the national average. So all these states with darker colors, they still are behind in the recovery compared to the other states of the country. And one of the other green part of the labor market is that there are large share of unemployed. They have been unemployed for 27 weeks and more, and they are called the permanently unemployed ones, because once you are unemployed for such a long period, it's really hard to get back to job. And 41%, they have been unemployed for 27 weeks and more. 14% have been unemployed for 15 to 26 weeks, 23% unemployed for 5 to 14 weeks. And there are 22% of unemployed who are like freshly unemployed, like even after the pandemic is almost, the economy is back to getting its life, but the unemployed number is still rising. 22% are new unemployed currently. New slide, please. So outside of the labor market, there are many signs that economy is coming back to life. For example, if you look at open table reservation, which is the restaurant reservation, which tracks the restaurant reservation, it is trending up. If you look at the TSA throughput, people are traveling, it is going up. If you look at the transit data, it is going up. People are now taking the transit as well. But at the same time, what is coming back to life is the inflation. So in this chart here shows the consumer price index, subtracting the food and shelter, which is the preferred measure of the Fed for the inflation. And you can see this, the blue line has now crossed the red line, and red line is where the inflation would have been if it was growing at a 2% steady growth, and 2% is the target of the Fed. But now we have crossed the 2% growth and have surpassed that red line. It has not gone very far, but the worry is that the trend that it is showing, the straight line ahead, that will continue. And that will be higher than the wage growth, which will erode the purchasing power, and then there will be more issues in the economy. So that's the worry with this inflation. But if you look at the different components that's contributing to the inflation, you can see that car and truck rental, airline fare, used cars and trucks, lodging away from home are the things that are contributing to the inflation, which means that all this pent-up demand that was there is coming back to life, and that's pushing the prices up. So probably this inflation is transitory and it may not remain there, but this is something we should be watching out for, because if the inflation keeps going up, then the rates, Fed is going to hike the rates, which means that mortgage rates is going to be higher, which means that affordability issues are going to grow even more than what we are currently seeing. So something to keep an eye on. Next slide, please. Now let's look at the housing market. Yeah, on the housing market front, the first slide shows the home sales. Next slide, please. So on your left is the existing home sales. And on the right is the existing home sales compared to a year ago. So the current run rate for the existing home sale is at 5.8 million. During the worst part of the pandemic, it was around 4 million, but then it stood up after lockdown opened up. We were at around 6.6 million on an annual basis, but now it's gone down to 5.8 million. If you compare it to a year ago, it's still more than 40% higher than a year ago. But year ago comparison is not good now, because we are comparing it to a very low period. And so we compare it to 2 years ago. When we still compare it to 2019, there is still growth in home sale of around 7.2%. So it's still stronger than 2019 levels, although we have now seen 4 consecutive months with low home sales. Next slide, please. And in Orange County, also like rest of the country, home sales are strong. If you look at the slide on the top panel, you can see that the golden line is higher than the red and the blue line, which means that the 2021 levels are still higher than the 2019 and 2020 levels. Again, year-over-year comparison here is inflated, but even with the numbers in levels, we can see that the home sales are strong, still strong in Orange County. Next slide, please. To gaze into how the demand is looking like, we track many high frequency data, and one of them is the purchase application index, which is updated on a weekly basis. So purchase application, the green line is the 2017 to 2019 average, blue line is the 2020 average, and golden line is the 2021 numbers. And we are seeing that the purchase application now is retreating back to the pre-pandemic level. So the demand is softening a little bit now. So the reason why we had such a strong demand in 2020 is because the rates were really low. They are still low. It's at 3.02%. But compared when you compare it to the historical rates, it is during the 1980s, rates were in high teens, but now we are at 3.02%. But if you compare it to where it was in the beginning of the year, it has risen about 30 to 40 basis points from there. And now we are seeing that buyers are more sensitive to rate increase now than in the past. And the reason why is because of the home prices that I'll get to later. Well, if there is increment of just a few basis points in the rates, the monthly payment is going to increase tremendously now, given where the home prices are. That's why buyers are more sensitive to these rate increases, and that's why we're seeing a softening in the purchase applications now. So low rates were good not just for purchases, but because of the low rates, we had a lot of homeowners that took advantage of refinances as well. So in 2020, there were around 2.6 trillion in refinances. But still now, with where rates are, they have moved 2.8 trillion in the money for refinances, meaning that there are many buyers or homeowners out there who have rates higher than what is currently offered in the market. So there are around 1.8 trillion homeowners, they are marginally in the money, and 1 trillion is deep in the money. The rates that they have paid is higher than 4%. So there's still a lot of refi potential out there in the market, given where the rates are today. One of the biggest issues in the housing market, and it already feels like a broken record because we've been talking about tight inventory for a long time now. So inventory for sale has reached the lowest level since the 1980s. If you compare it to a year ago, inventory are down by 23% now. And there are many renters that are looking to be homeowners, and there are just one home that's available for sale for around 30 to 32 renters. So not all renters want to be homeowners, but if you think only half of the renters want to be homeowners today, they just have one home available for 15 renters that are looking to be homeowners. So the inventory is very, very tight out there. Next slide, please. And that's evident not just in the national data, but in county data as well. Like if you look at the Orange County, then Orange County has almost 6 weeks of supply. So that's like a little over a month of supply out there. So inventory is tight in every part of the country right now. And if you look at year-over-year change in the weeks of supply, it has gone down. It is down to less than 10% now. And one of the ways we can add to the inventory is through construction. Construction is picking up. They are higher than the national average for over a year, but it's hard to fill the gap that was created from decades long of bleak construction. And now buildings are reporting, on top of all this lack of construction, they are reporting material shortages, they are reporting material prices soaring, and a lot of builders are reporting that there is a serious shortage. For example, things like appliances, oriented board, plywood, everything that you need to build a home, at least start to build a home, they are in short supply. That's why also the construction is lagging behind. And lumber and wood products, if you look at the prices of lumber today, it's more than 80% higher than a year ago. And that's also putting a lot of price pressure on the home prices. So this chart here shows the home price growth. As I said, there is lack of inventory. There's a lot of demand out there. Lumber prices, copper, steel price of those things are just is off the roofs. And because of that, there's a lot of price pressure. And the national home price growth was at around 15.3%. If you look at states like Idaho, Utah, Arizona, home prices have grown by almost 30%, 23%, 21%. And this also gives an idea of where people are moving to. So these are the places where people are moving to because of all the flexibility that we're getting from remote work. California home price growth is at 15.7%. We used to see California in the dark red color for most of the part before the pandemic hit. But now with the flexibility of working from home, we're seeing that people from California are fleeing to places like Idaho and Utah and Arizona. That's why we're seeing the price growth is really high over there. But California, I mean, 15.7% is still a lot of money, but it's lower than these areas where people are now moving to. So the high home prices is, of course, it's good for homeowners because it's helping them build equity. If you add up all the US housing stock, then it's around $32 trillion. And now we have $21 trillion in home equity and only $10.9 trillion in debts. If you compare it to the 2006 level, it's $7.9 trillion higher than where it was. So $7.9 trillion higher in equity than it was in the 2006. So homeowners are building a lot of equity, but what's happening to the prospective buyers are affordability is exacerbated for them. Home prices are growing very much. Incomes are not growing as much as home prices are, which you'll see in the next slide. In this slide, what I've plotted is the price to income ratio. If you look at the price of the homes versus income of the buyers, then home prices are more than 4 times higher than the income. So priced, and it's rising. We are seeing that it's rising much more after 2020 as well. So because of this home to price ratio, affordability is exacerbated for the prospective home buyers. So in closing, just to wrap up, so economy, we saw that it has recovered to its pre-pandemic level, but labor market, it is still struggling. Inflation is picking up, whether it's transitory or permanent, we don't know yet, but something that needs to be watched out for. Housing market, it remains hot, but we are seeing that there is some sign of slowdown, especially in the purchase application, and probably because rates are rising a little bit. Home prices are up on low inventory, which is adding equity to homeowners, but affordability challenges is growing for the prospective buyers. So that's all I have for today, and I'm punting it back to Andreas. Thank you so much.
Ajita, thank you so much. Jason, thank you so much for the presentation. There was so much information and it raised so many questions. I've actually been writing all these questions out. I don't know, do we have time for some questions right now?
Sure, absolutely.
Okay, excellent. So primarily, mostly on the, I know that we talked about possible programs that Freddie Mac has currently that can help our community, especially our minorities, in regards to helping renters become buyers or homeowners. How, as far as Freddie Mac, what are the most powerful products that the organization has that as realtors and lenders, since we have the first point of contact many times with these with our community, that we can help out and we can kind of cross-sell and bring more people into the homeownership flock. Because as we know with numbers, you know, once a person becomes a homeowner, their net worth and asset, it just that the entire persona just kind of evolves into a better place, not only for themselves, for their families, but their communities. So what programs are the go-to ones for Freddie Mac?
Okay, so I'll first start off with something that I shared a little bit earlier in the presentation, Andreas, is about being a trusted advisor. So one of the things that we see nationally is that, you know, there's a large amount of the people that are identified in the Black and Brown community who are using FHA as the product of choice. Now, I never try to demonize FHA because there is always a space for it. However, as a trusted advisor, you have to understand your customer a little bit better and their needs, because FHA does have the upfront mortgage insurance premium that can be very expensive. It can be a very costly loan at the end of the day. So products such as Dreammaker that is offered by Chase is a great alternative to an FHA product. Like I said, it's an alternative, not just the end all be all. So with that, you're able to put down as little as 3% down in many cases. You avoid the upfront mortgage insurance premium and any mortgage insurance that you have tacked onto your current payment, because you will be above the 80% loan to value. Then what will happen is it'll fall off once you go under the 80% LTV threshold. So it's cancelable, the MI. On an FHA product, the MI is not cancelable. So as a trusted advisor, the real estate community has to understand the pros and cons, the benefits, and the product guides so they can properly articulate that to their customer so they can make a more informed decision when making those recommendations.
Most definitely. And one of the experiences I've had with Freddie Mac and Chase and Citi, some of those lenders, is that when we use the LP products, a lot of times, for example, for purchases, it's great because we can get away, you know, with that MI after it hits 80%. But if you're doing a refinance, what I've seen, because property values are going so much higher, that there's a lot of appraisal waivers, that's a benefit because then you remove an additional obstacle on the process of getting that financing for that specific client. Thank you for sharing, Jason. I really appreciate it. And then regarding the economic forecast, I do have a lot of questions on that. You know, as far as the shortage of supply, so within our county, we've had a shortage of supply. I'm a real estate broker, and we, to get offers accepted, we have to overcome, offer everything but the kitchen sink. And so what we also seen is that, and I don't know if you can give additional information on that. We've seen a lot of institutional buyers coming into the market. So we've seen in our county specifically, we have Zillow who are purchasing the homes as directly from the sellers. And then we also hear other organizations kind of like BlackRock or the Koch Industries that are coming out and they're buying properties in mass to create the single family rentals. Do you have any information as far as how that is affecting the inventory overall, or either California or all 50 states?
Yeah, that was something that we were looking into, and we saw that lately the share of cash buyers is just going up. And I'm sure a lot of institutional buyers like Zillow, as you said, they are the ones who might be buying in cash. But what we are also seeing is that it's not just these institutional buyers. They are out there more than ever, but then there are also investors who are buying as a second home, who are also reallocating their assets probably from stocks to real estate now. So there are a lot of individual buyers who are buying in cash, which is also one thing that we have noticed. But institutional buyers, you're right, they are buying in a bunch, like 10 homes at once, and we are seeing that is pushing a lot into the tight inventory. That is something that we are looking at, but we did not look at it through the lenses of institutional buyers versus the individual buyers, but through the lenses of cashiers. Yes, definitely, we are seeing that's happening all across the country.
Yeah, so that's something that we've definitely seen locally. Now, you also spoke regarding the supply shortage, and that's something that we've heard, social media, the news everywhere. The price of wood went up, the price of copper is going up, the price of commodities are going up. How much over the last year, because of the pandemic, and it's understandable that when the economy closes down, it's going to create shortages. How much has those shortages added to the price of the home as far as the new constructions is concerned? So I don't know if you can kind of share some information on that as well.
Yeah, actually, the prices of lumbers and steel, that was going up pre-pandemic as well. But now, so there was a supply chain constraint. Because of that, we are seeing that it has rapidly grown, but this is a phenomena that was happening even before the pandemic hit. So it's not something because of the pandemic. And also, when it comes to construction, we see builders always talk about the land. They don't have enough land to build. The labor, they don't have enough labor out there. And land labor being in sort is not just a pandemic story. So we were like, construction industry was sort of labor even before the pandemic. After the 2007 recession, people just went back home. They never came back. And so there is a shortage of labor. Land, I mean, it takes forever to get permit, to start the construction process. And so that's also another like delay in so there is an index called delay index, how long it takes for construction to prepare for construction, like before they even hit the ground. And the delay index has been growing ever and growing pre-pandemic. Like, it's not something that happened in pandemic. It's just that the speed has gone up because of the pandemic, because there was this disruption in the supply chain. That's what I think is happening.
Okay, that's interesting. And I've seen a couple of reports that it because of all the shortages, it's kind of added some additional pricing on there. And I really wanted to get some feedback. Thank you so much for sharing. So, I'm in real estate because my mom's a realtor as well. She started back in the early 90s, late 80s, early 90s. And I remember I used to help her out back then. And she used to tell me how she used to sell houses in the 14-15% interest rate. I'm like, oh my God,
Yeah,
how
that's
did I do that?
crazy.
I started in real estate in 2001, and then got fully into it by 2005, 2006. And I know that since then, we've enjoyed an environment where rates have been below 6%. Now, with everything that's going on, with the amount of money printing that the government's doing, with the pandemic, with how our economy is right now, how does Freddie Mac foresee rates in the following years? Is there a scenario where rates can go back up to those levels? Is that something that as a community we should be preparing? Because if everything we've seen over the last year with the pandemic, and anytime that issues happen at a national level or a worldwide level, the first ones to go are the minorities. We are the first ones that are hit because, as you can tell, we're always on the service industry, or we just don't have the information or the knowledge to be able to take action. So how can we prepare as trusted advisors to be able to go back to our community and say, hey, look, we're in an environment where things can change periodically, and a lot of our community don't have that information. So what can you share with us about that specific environment? As something's going to affect everybody, I believe.
Yeah, so rates, we do forecast a lot of metrics on a quarterly basis. So rates are one of them. We don't have like a long-term view, but if we look at 2020 and 2023, we do have forecast that the rates are going to go up. Because the economy is now coming back to life. We're seeing that the 10-year treasury is going up, but then it's like it's going from 3.3% to less than 4% in the next 2 years. So our forecast, I don't remember the exact number, but it's around 3.3, 3.7 for probably 3.4 for 2022 and 3.7 for 2023. So that's our forecast, at least up until 2023. And the reason being, Fed are so why rates go up is when the Fed increases their rates, right? They are close to 0% now, and they don't have any plans to increase the rates up until 2023. So that's why we think that the rates are still going to stay low up until 2023. But once the economy is, running in its full capacity, then probably Fed will raise the rates, and then we'll see that the mortgage rates will also go up. But at least for the next 2 to 3 years, we are our forecast is that the rates are going to stay below 4%.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much. That's all the questions I had. Dominique, do you have any questions for Jason or Ajita?
No, I don't think I have any additional questions. You've done a phenomenal job today. We thank you all for the valuable information. I think our members have greatly enjoyed it, as have I. So thank you all. Appreciate your participation today, and have a wonderful afternoon.
Yes, thank you, Ajita and Jason from Nahrep, Orange County. We really appreciate your time. I know that our members, our base, and our local community are going to enjoy this information, and this is information that they can actually take action on now in order to be able to help our community become homeowners and help them through that transition from renters to homeownership. On behalf of Nahrep, Orange County, I would like to thank you. Thank you for the opportunity, and I hope you guys are staying safe and have a great week.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me.